Good morning. This webinar offers closed captioning. Welcome to the City of Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection free business education webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be available at youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. All BACP webinars are part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, which is a free program for anyone interested in starting or growing a business in Chicago. Getting your certificate is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, register for the program. 2, attend 6 webinars in 6 months. 3, graduate to get your certificate. Graduating makes you eligible to apply for CIBC Bank's Entrepreneurial Loan Program. Note that you must already be registered for the program to get credit for attending today's webinar. For full details, visit chicago.gov/BACP certificate. Views, information, and opinions are expressed during this webinar are those of the presenter and not necessarily the official policy or position of the City of Chicago or BACP. The information mentioned will be posted in the chat box. Today's webinar will be Small Business Development Grants presented by the City of Chicago Department of Planning and Development. Turning it over to you, Jim.
Okay, thank you, Stella. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jim Harbin, and I'm a Deputy Commissioner here at the City of Chicago's Department of Planning and Development. I want to welcome you to the launch of BACP's 2025 Small Business Expo Series and to today's presentation on small business capital improvement grants. In today's session, I will provide a high-level overview of 3 of the department's small grant programs, share some tips on how to submit a strong application, and allow time for questions at the end of the presentation. Please feel free to use the Q&A and chat features to ask your questions. I will do my best to answer all of them at the end of the presentation, but if I'm unable to do so, a copy of this presentation along with key contact information will be sent to everyone on this call. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So today's agenda, we're going to accomplish a couple of things. One, we're going to do a program overview of the Department of Planning, our Small Business Development Bureau, and a very high-level look in terms of what our small grant programs are. We also are going to take a slightly deeper dive into 3 of our specific programs, the Small Business Improvement Fund, or SPIF, and get used to acronyms. We have plenty of them. Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, or NOF, and then our Community Development Grant, which is CDG/S, which stands for the small grant. And again, I need to emphasize that these are going to be our small capital improvement grants, not our medium and our large. I'm also going to go over some common traits that these 3 share, so you can get a chance to get an overview of all 3 without taking a deep dive into each one, which would take up much more time than we have here today. And then I'm going to provide some application tips on what we've seen in strong applications in the past. I'm also going to talk a little bit about resources at the end of the presentations in terms of who you can contact here at the department and some of the financial institutions that have participated in our small business grants in the past. And then I'm excited to leave some time at the end for questions to make sure I can address any of your concerns. So the department overview, part of what I want to do is to make sure you guys have some context in terms of who we are and what bureau within the department is actually providing these type of resources. And then again, go and take a deeper dive into what the grant programs are designed to do. And so with that, the Department of Planning and Development is one of the departments here in the cities that provides planning, that is the city's planning agency and promotes comprehensive growth, sustainability, overseeing zoning, things like land use, business development, historic preservation, and community improvements. Our Small Business Development Bureau provides financial assistance programs and business development grants like what you're going to hear today, as well as targeted initiatives to promote small businesses on commercial and industrial corridors. And our grant programs are designed to support small businesses and neighborhood vitality through reimbursable grant awards. And you're going to hear me talk about reimbursable quite often today. Which is the structure in which these grants are provided to small businesses across the city. The grants are for permanent improvements on eligible commercial property. And so there's 3 particular programs that we're going to go over. The community development grants, We use the acronym CDG small to designate that there is a larger component of that program. This particular program is a competitive process. In other words, you will be competing with other businesses across the city. Applications are open biannually. The maximum award for this particular program is $250,000, and the project must be within the city limits of Chicago. The Neighborhood Opportunity Fund is also a competitive process. They have a rolling application in which there are quarterly deadlines, and I'm going to talk about that a little later in the program. The maximum award for this particular grant program is $300,000, and projects must be in what we call the NOF qualified investment areas, and I'm going to qualify what that is a little bit later. Our Small Business Improvement Fund, or SPIF, is a non-competitive process. These applications are submitted during monthly rollout periods in individual TIF districts, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what TIF districts are. The maximum grant amount for these particular programs are $150,000 maximum award for commercial or retail projects and $250,000 for industrial projects. These projects must be within these specific TIF districts that are open through this SPIF application process. So the structure for the community development grant, these grants can provide up to 75% of total eligible costs to a particular business. The maximum award for this particular program is $250,000. These awards are based on eligible cost that is presented within your application. Strong applicants provide proof that they are able to finance up to 50% or 50% of the total project cost. And these awarded projects can request reimbursements at 4 specific stages of the process that has to be verifiable and hit those project milestones during construction. Strong applications provide costs from redevelopment professionals. Those redevelopment professionals include architects, engineers, and also licensed general contractors. The structures for NOF is slightly different. NOF is a reimbursement grant that can provide up to $250,000 for construction and up to an additional $50,000 for approved professional technical assistance. And again, it's those professionals within the construction industry, architects, engineers, construction project managers, et cetera. For construction, the grant can provide up to 75% of eligible project costs for a maximum of $250,000. Those payouts of those draws are dispersed at 3 different times during the construction period, and they're based on that documented, verifiable project progress. Technical assistance program can cover up to 20% of the value of the construction grant, up to $50,000. Only NOF finalists, in other words, you have to be within the program to be eligible for this particular part of the grant. And you have to have approved technical assistance providers. Those will be the individuals who have access to this funds. Eligible TA expenses cover the cost of that professional support that are needed for most of the construction projects that we see within these 3 programs. And then the grant structure for SPIF, or the Small Business Improvement Fund, really quick fun fact. This particular grant program is over 25 years old now. Most people don't know that. The maximum grant amount for this particular program varies by property and applicant type. For instance, for industrial properties, you can have a maximum of up to $250,000 for this from this particular program. For commercial property, it's up to $150,000, and that's for someone who, that's for commercial property occupied by a single owner or tenant. And then there's $250,000 for a single commercial property where you see multiple storefronts. That is going to be limited to $75,000 of maximum assistance per individual applicant. So this is what I think is going to be critical part of this presentation in terms of some key points to remember and how we start getting into the details on how you connect to these particular resources. All three of these programs are reimbursement grants that provide funding based on eligible receipts and lien waivers that demonstrate that you've paid someone to do the work on your project. Most applicants do partner with the financial institution early on before applying to our grants. In other words, they have a good sense that they have a fundable feasible project, which helps them in turn in a very strong application. All permanent work must be completed by a City of Chicago licensed contractor. So getting someone who is not a licensed contractor could jeopardize payments. You have to have, and what I mean by a licensed contractor, that is someone who also has an active insurance policy, and those things will have to be shown and demonstrated before any reimbursements are approved. The average time for our projects is roughly 2 years, and we really require projects that are within that range. Anything over 2 years, you've got a much, much larger project, and we will then recommend you to one of our other grant programs. The eligibility for our project is pretty much the same for most of our grants, and where there's differences, I'm going to highlight that. So who's eligible? There's business owners, property owners, tenants, nonprofit organizations, and community developers. These grants are mostly, many of our grants are based on geography. However, the Community Development Grant, or CDG small grants, must be within the City of Chicago and cover the entire city. The other two grants, SPIF and NOF, if you jump down below real quickly with me, SPIF and NOF, for instance, SPIF projects must be in an eligible TIF or tax incremental finance district. There's a SPIF rollout calendar on their website that can tell you when these particular geographies or districts are available for the grant. For the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, projects must be located within qualified corridors, and those again can be accessed on the city's NOF website. The what commercial, retail, mixed-use projects are eligible for all three. SPIF can also support industrial projects, and we have many of our industrial small businesses that participate in this program. And then new construction, and many people ask about new constructions with our program. The Neighborhood Opportunity Fund and the CDG grant is the only two programs that will consider new construction. There's a lot of detail that we need from those particular type of projects, but both of those programs can accommodate that. The Small Business Improvement Fund does not. And then eligible expenses. It's easy for me to talk about this in a very simple way. If I could pick up a building and shake it upside down, everything that fell out of the building, if you will, is not eligible for these particular programs. We're literally looking for more permanent type of improvements. So anything like major exterior work and interior renovations, roofing, masonry, facade work, windows and doors, certainly mechanical systems like HVAC systems, your electrical work and your plumbing, ADC accessibility improvements, we certainly support that. We also support with our program soft costs. So when you need to have that architect or that designer be a part of your project, if you need an engineering because you need some structural work done in your project, any type of site prep, any type of demolition, construction fees, all of our grants do support those type of expenses. And again, we talked about new construction. Acquisition can be done, but again, these are very detailed projects that are considered for our programs. Both NOF and CDG do accommodate acquisitions. And what's ineligible? And so many people have questions about residential work or home-based businesses. Residential work and home-based businesses are not eligible for these particular programs. Neither is operational costs, and we get many questions about, can your grant support the operations for our projects? We also look for projects that are no longer than 2 years. Anything beyond that, we're going to recommend you go to one of our larger grant programs. Projects that are already funded through another one of our grant programs. For instance, if you already have a SPIF, can you go ahead and apply for a CDG? We do not allow for that. And then projects that are completed. We've actually had applications come in where the projects were done and people wanted to apply for the program to be reimbursed. We do not allow for that. And then certainly projects that have received other city grants over the last 3 years, the threshold is usually up to about $250,000. In other words, if you've got one grant before, we usually want there to be a waiting period. So there's another opportunity for other businesses to apply. And so application tips, one of the things that we always talk about is things like shovel ready. And, you need to have your project ready. So I think it's worth going into some illustration of that. You know, strong consideration is given to applications that provide some of these things. For instance, having a real itemized budget supported by professionals. In other words, you've got licensed and insurance general contractors who actually gave you these bids and put it on paper. And you can actually use that as supporting documents when you put together and send in and submit your application. A clear scope of work. You know, when you talk about windows, how many? When you talk about doors, how many? When you talk about drywall, what's the square footage of that drywall that you're going to be put in? The more detailed you are about that work. And again, one of the things that also helps when you put in that detail is if you have a project that actually requires an architect, he's got to be, he or she has to be state licensed. But again, that budget needs to align with what you're suggesting in your scope in terms of putting that detail together. Particularly with blueprints and design plans, they should give you the square footage, which should have your estimators give you detailed information about what they're providing their estimates on. Proof of site control and financing. This is one where we get quite a few questions. I'm going to go into more detail in the next slide on this, but yes, there are ways to provide proof of site control and the ways to demonstrate that you have your financing in order. And then for startups, and we do accept startups. You can apply for our project if you are a brand new business, but we do want to see a detailed business plan and to make sure that you've had that business plan vetted. More than likely, your project is going to need some type of financing. Any financial institution that you talk to is going to want to see that business plan as well and vet it for in terms of your sustainability. If you're an existing business, a recent profit and loss statement, usually over the last 2 years, and audited tax returns also help support that your business is sustainable. When we talk about site control, you know, there are some accepted documents that we really prefer. A deed, obviously, if you own it free and clear and you got the deed to your project, that certainly helps. But also an executed real estate contract, if it's something more recent, that real estate contract has to have the exact address of the project that you are listing in your application. And we've seen some deviation in that over the course of the last few years. An executed lease. We do accept tenants for our particular programs, and an executed lease for at least 3 years is something that is very acceptable. Letters of intent. We do accept letters of intent, but there is a note. You know, applicants will need to have a fully executed lease or a deed for the project on the project address before any award contract is issued. And that's a critical note to remember. Again, letters of intent indicates that you're close, but we've seen negotiations, even on letters of intent, go years. And we really want to make sure that before anybody is accepted, that there is a fully executed lease in place. NOF, the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, doesn't even accept letters of intent. And then support resources. And I think this is where I'm going to be able to signal to you probably the most important piece of applying for these type of city resources. We don't encourage you to participate in these grant programs alone. And there's a number of support resources to help you and guide you in terms of making sure that you've got an application that has been fully vetted and that is checking the boxes that we require for these particular grant programs. You know, one of the ways to start is to go to the websites for each one of these grant programs. They are clearly listed in terms of what the requirements are, what the eligibilities are, and what constitutes the documentation that we are asking for you to, in order for you to present a strong application. There are financial institutions who have supported many of our grants in the past. Allies for Community Business, Local Initiative Support Corporation, or LIST Chicago, Chicago Community Loan Fund, the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. Most people know this bank as CBIC, and Green Rain Archer, which is ran now by one of our previous colleagues in the Department of Planning. And this is just a few. You know, there's others that you certainly can reach out to. These are some that really have been doing a lot of work with the Department of Planning. And again, having a conversation with these financial institutions help you understand, A, what the requirements would be if indeed they were to provide this type of financing. And if, you know, obviously, if these institutions find your project ready for financing and ready to get launched, that's actually a signal to not only any of our grant programs, but many of the other grant programs across other municipalities. You are now signaling that, yep, your project is financeable and you are indeed shovel ready to go if you, when you get this particular grant. So you also have another set of resources. There are program leads for each of these programs. My email is certainly there. You can always reach out to me. I certainly will respond to all my emails, and so will my colleagues. Hannah Jones actually leads the Community Development Grant. Joshua Sun leads the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund. Nora Curry leads the Small Business Improvement Fund. They're happy to take your questions. Happy to make sure that you are, pointed in the right direction, and look forward to seeing all of your strong applications. So with here, I'm going to pause and go ahead and start taking your questions. But again, you guys can always reach out if you have any questions regarding our grant programs. Each one of the websites for each one of these particular grants will let you know when there's an open application period. Again, we can help you with that as well. With that, so I just want to thank you for your time today, and I look forward to taking your questions. So Stella, I don't know if you're still on. Are you actually able to see the chat? I'm not sure I can see the chat in this mode. Okay, I think I got it here. A lot of good mornings. Thank you. Questions just yet. Okay. All right, somebody says I have a vending machine business with machines at various locations. Would my business qualify? Well, your business certainly qualifies and is eligible for the grant, but these grants are for capital improvements on real estate. So if you've got, a retail storefront that sells some of the items that you have in your vending business, absolutely. I would probably need more detail from you, Philip. And you can easily just give me an email and I'm happy to chat with you. How long is the waiting period? The waiting period varies. It depends really more so on how many applications we get for any given round. If there's a really heavy participation, you can obviously see that there's going to be a longer waiting period for us to do all of the reviews. And if there's a smaller participation, we usually try to get awards out roughly within 45 to 60 days. Let's see here. How much of the grant can be allocated for acquisition? That is going to depend on each project. There's a percentage based on the work that is actually going to be conducted as part of the build out or the renovation. And it's best that if you have a specific project with a specific acquisition cost and specific scope, the review team or the teams that you're going to be working with can begin to start answering those questions. But it varies by each project. And that's why I signal, just to touch on this one more time, that, acquisition is a little bit more complex than a standard renovation project. Let's see. We send the slide deck or link recording after this webinar. We certainly will. Be able to see our names and see who is present, so we can get credit for this webinar. Not sure what that's about, but send me a personal email and let me get a better understanding of your question. So when you say home-based business, does that include virtual online as well? It does. And again, these grants are aimed at real estate. And I think I need to be more clear about that. These are from renovations to those type of businesses that need that retail or commercial space. Okay. How can I find a mentor within the BACP community? I'm sure Stella is all over that question and will happily respond to you. If you need help connecting, send me an email. I'm certainly happy to help with that question. Okay. Will the slide deck be shared? Yes, it will.
Chat.
I'm sorry?
Putting some information in the chat regarding.
Okay, I'm just going through the chat real quick and see if I can get these. Can direct me to what grant to focus on for a medical health clinic. I've been in business 8 years and will focus on weight loss and I'm not sure in minority communities. We certainly can direct you. So shoot me an email on that question. Part of what you can do is simply go online. I would argue most of our grant programs would consider that specific business, but the details would matter. So, if you really want to take a deeper dive in that question, I'm certainly happy to help, but medical health would not make you disqualified for the grant program. We would just need to understand what it is you would be doing with the health clinic. We would need some more detail. Okay. Okay. Can the properties be on lease contract, or does the business have to own the property? No, we will accept tenants. If you have a long enough lease, that the threshold is 3 years. If you've got a lease with 3 or more years, yes, you are eligible for the grant program, all 3. I'm looking to open an event hall. Will this business qualify? It certainly does qualify. Again, the details would matter in terms of the type of business model you have for your event hall. There's a lot of questions we would have with that. You would really have to give us a real good sense in terms of, what type of activity your event hall would be providing in that particular neighborhood. But yes, on the surface, yes, it will. Yes, it would. How long is the application process? Again, I would argue that it is much, much faster if you have done your due diligence. If you've spoken to one of those institutions or had a professional, a real estate professional, somebody in the construction industry, really help understand the questions that you're up against, and you've got the answers readily available. The process is going to be much, much faster for you. If you don't, it could take some time because that due diligence, again, for a strong application is required. Okay, for each of the 3 types of grants, how many grants are funded? How many grants are funded each year? Is there a website that lists per year who has been funded and the amount they rewarded? So each one of the grant websites, if I'm not mistaken, I would probably need to double check SPIF, but for CDG and for NOF, yes, previous awardees are listed on the websites. Do all grants require businesses to pay upfront and then reimburse? Yes. That's probably one of the most direct questions I've heard regarding one of the things that have challenged many of our applicants. These grant programs are reimbursement programs. They require you to be prepared to engage your contractors and your vendors and get work done before draws or reimbursements are made. So yes, is the answer to that question. Are there certain types of businesses that are less likely to be approved? There are. One of the things that we don't do is, we shy away from liquor stores. We certainly don't do the sin businesses, strip joints and things like that. Religious, we don't do churches or anything like that. Yes, there's a list of those on all 3 websites in terms of what businesses are not acceptable. But yes, there is a list for those. How long of a waiting period between applying for different projects? Again, I think I've answered that one. Do properties from Cook County Land Bank work with these? Very much so. Yes, picking up, there's many of our applicants and many of our awardees who have engaged Cook County Land Bank Authority, which is what CCLB stands for. Yes, is the short answer for that. No need to go into a lot of detail there. Let's see here. I would also like to have a mentor. Yeah, there's community-based organizations across the entire city of Chicago who are there to help support small businesses. And so depending on kind of where you are, we certainly can make a good handoff to some of those organizations, and they'll be happy to sit down with you to help you understand not only, what type of support you would need for your business, but in many cases, they can also provide resources for you as well outside of the grant programs. Let's see here. I'm a board member for Chamber of Commerce. We are creating a business project that will turn into micro grants. Is this something that the chamber can help creating any kind of funding? Okay, I think I understand your question, but we would need to hear more details. So, the thing is, it sounds like, is this something the chamber would like to discuss with the city? Yes, we certainly would love to hear more about what you have in mind. Let's see. Still quite a few questions. Someone sent me a Zoom link. Here's my email. Okay. For mentorship from BACP, please send an email. Okay. Thank you for doing that, guys. Can you direct me to where I can find grants for nonprofit programming? Not sure that there's something we would be familiar with pointing to for nonprofit funding beyond the philanthropic community this year in Chicago. But I'm happy to, again, if you shoot me an email, I'm happy to, give you some options. Which grant is best for startups? I don't think there's a particular one better for startups than the other. We have, again, that list of things that we require from you as a startup to make sure that we understand that you have something that is, has a real good potential of being sustainable. And again, most of these grants are going to require some type of financing before you actually are connected to these resources. And those financial institutions who are going to be engaging you regarding that, they're going to want to really kind of understand your business and see things like your pro forma and make sure that your business plan is solid enough for them to participate in your financing. Thank you. And I appreciate you guys. And if properties from Cook County Land Bank work, do they have to be obtained first or just a letter of interest? Yeah, we need you to have ownership of those projects, particularly for the small program. The larger program, there again, there's a complexity that comes along with acquisition that needs a lot more due diligence and attention in terms of that detail. But the short answer is yes. We certainly find the stronger applications are those who completed that process. Let's see. How can I find grant opportunities for nonprofit programming with the city? I'm not sure if I completely understand that question, but again, I'm happy to take a deeper dive to better understand what you're suggesting. Again, all of our grant programs are, nonprofit organizations are eligible for our for these 3 grant programs. If you're looking to renovate a specific piece of real estate, and if the programming matches what's eligible for the grant programs. Did I understand correctly when it says if you have a storefront business with multiple businesses, the maximum you can receive is $75,000 if the others apply for the $250,000. Yeah, it sounds like you have it. Again, I'm happy to kind of, talk to you about your specific situation, but $75,000 is the maximum. If there's multiple storefronts, the building itself can only do a maximum of $250,000, particularly for the SPIF program. And so if you are, if you've got multiple tenants going after a SPIF grant, there's a maximum, there's going to be a cutoff. For your specific storefront, though, I would think more towards what you need for your business, and maybe you may, look to apply for one of the other grant programs. It's rare that at the same time multiple businesses apply for the grant program, but it has happened, and that's the reason why we put that in there. I would say, to be optimistic and to, again, put in your application. If we come to that situation, we certainly will have a conversation with you. But I wouldn't put the limitations on yourself before applying, unless you know that the other businesses in your building are also going to apply. BACP is putting a lot of good information in terms of connecting with them. And by the way, BACP is a resource center for connecting with that community-based organization near you in terms of who would be helpful in terms of starting these conversations about making sure you are connecting to the resources that are available here in the city of Chicago. So please don't hesitate to reach out to them for that. Also, is anyone looking for a contractor? There's someone in the chat saying that they've got a way to help you connect to general contractors. Can a grant cover a project that included more than one building? Let me see, one more building and or property, can it be mixed? The short answer for that is no. We literally like to have our grant programs aim at a specific location. And if there's another location that you're interested in, you have to do a completely different application for that other address. How long is the waiting period? I think I've answered that. Between projects, if you maximize at 250 for one of our grant programs, yep, there's going to be a 3-year waiting period on most of our grant programs. But again, if you really want to get into the details, reach out to me and we can talk specifically about your situation. I have a convenience store. Would I be able to apply for a grant to help stock my store and purchase more refrigerators? Our grants are not aimed at that type of equipment. Are certainly operations, which would, be the inventory. These are more for capital improvement grants. In other words, if you were looking to do some improvements on your storefront, those are the type of things that would be eligible. Can I fund my YouTube channel? I don't think that would be eligible. Can sole proprietors apply for these grants? Absolutely. Okay. Is resale business accepted? I'm not sure I understand that particular question. Is resale business accepted? Yeah, reach out to me with an email. Be curious to understand more about that question. Let's say I want to do several properties on a block. You certainly can, as long as you do several specific and distinct applications for each address. What about new construction? We talked about that. It's more complex than just renovation projects, but we're happy to consider that. Could you review the point that the grant is a reimbursement for expenses, but the project cannot be completed? Is that one would need to apply doing planning, pay for the work, and then getting reimbursed? It simply works like this. If you have a project that you want to have us consider for a grant project, yep, we don't want you doing any work on the project, but we do want you to have that project financed. You got $100,000 worth of work, you can absolutely apply for our grants. But what we look for is that you need to have a way to pay for that work up front. And usually what happens is people go to their financial institution and work out a financing situation where, let me say it a different way. The best way to apply for these grants is if this is a project you were going to do anyway, regardless of any grant program. If you come to the table that well buttoned up, you are considered a very strong application. Now, there's variations in different degrees of that, obviously. But the high degree is, yep, I have a project that I'm going to do. I am financed for that project. Can I apply for these grants? We strongly encourage you to apply for grants under those circumstances, because now you're coming to the table with documentation that indicates that, yes, I have a financial institution that looked at my project in detail and has agreed to finance this project. We are certainly looking for those type of projects, and those type of projects are considered very strong from all 3 grant programs. Okay. Okay, I'm at the end. One last one before we get to the Q&A. I have a resale business similar to the Salvation Army, but for profit, of course. Yes. If the building is, again, something that where the programming is going to fit our eligibility, we certainly would love to have you apply for our programs. So Stella, that's it for the chat. You said there are still some questions in the Q&A?
I see 8, but I believe these are repeats.
Okay, that's okay. You find something new, I'm happy to accommodate.
I think the first one is a good one. I don't think we You answered this question. For each of the three type of grants, how many grants are funded each year? Is there a website that lists per year who has been funded and the amount that they were awarded?
Yep, for NOF and for CDG, the previous awardees are listed. Again, I haven't looked at the SPIF website in a while, so I'm not sure what you'll find there, but I'd be surprised if you don't see also a list of previous awardees there as well.
And there's one more.
Mhm.
Can this grant help fund basically her YouTube channel, like with studio time and things like that?
The grants again are designed to help support renovations on real estate. You know, that would not be considered an eligible expense.
And one more question just came in the chat. Can the grants be combined?
No,
You missed,
no, they can't. If you actually need more than one of these small grant programs, there's a good chance that you really need a larger grant. And so we would literally encourage you to apply for one of the larger grant programs, not the small.
We'll give our questions are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I said, thank you. This has been really helpful. Are there programs who offer assistance with upfront costs until the reimbursement comes through?
There's where you start talking to those financial institutions. You know, and again, I've got their contact information, the emails, and phone numbers. You know, they are interested in, you know, the community, the community development financial institutions are literally here to help entertain those type of questions in terms of, do you have a project that is, you know, going to have an impact on the community? Do you have a project that is something that's rearing to go? We want to hear those projects. And in many cases, they actually step up and are the financiers of those projects. And you know, because they know stepping up actually puts many of those projects in a position to be very strong candidates for one of our grant programs.
They're asking for your contact information, like an email where they can reach you.
Yeah, it's on the deck. It was on that last page, and I can go back to that if needed. Let's see here. I can do that really quick and open this up. You know what? I will make sure you guys get a copy of this. I can't pull it back up right now for some strange reason. But yes, it's on the back of this presentation deck, and you guys will get a copy of this presentation deck.
Let's give them 2 more minutes in case they have questions.
Sure, absolutely.
If any additional questions come in, they're just saying, thank you. This has been very informative.
Can you guys see the screen now?
Nothing popped up.
That's okay. Okay. How about now?
It's coming through. There it is.
Okay.
Here's one. Could you provide us with contact information regarding the financial institutions that assist with upfront costs?
Can you guys see that screen? And don't get me wrong, you know, any financial institution would certainly, you know, want to entertain a project, particularly, you know, your local bank, if you will. But these are specifically called community development financial institutions for a reason. You know, they are looking to help, small businesses invest in the city of Chicago and more places for that matter. They're not limited to the city. But yeah, these are a few that we have worked with in the past. And there are others. So yes, connecting with one of these, you're going to be in pretty good hands having a conversation about your particular project.
It looks like there are no
Mhm.
more questions. Do you have any final words?
No, just thank you, for giving me the privilege of communicating, to our small business community. And, wish you guys all the best and encourage you guys to entertain, engaging in our, financial resources and getting the support you need to do so. Thank you guys and look forward to speaking with many of you soon.
Thank you to today's presenter. If you are a part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, your account will automatically reflect your attendance today. Today's webinar was recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Chicago BACP. To learn more about our upcoming webinars, please visit chicago.gov/BACP webinars. Thanks for joining us this morning and have a great weekend.